Very happy to be here and share some of the ideas in social gaming with you. I think it's you all seen the performance of Zynga and the stock market and a lot of noise on the world of social gaming and some other companies performing quite well. I'll give a basic overview. I'll tell you a little bit about the Latin American market, how we see it, what we see in the future, and feel free to ask any questions after all. I'll try to go quite fast to the presentation in 10 minutes or so. I think questions will probably be the more interesting section. So what are we talking about today? First is what are social games? Why do they matter? Why are they different from traditional games? The second one, how do we see the region? What trends do we see? And I'm sure you guys talked a lot about that this morning. And what trends do we see for gaming in particular? Boss2, a little bit of self-promotion here. We're the #1 social gaming company in Latin America. We have around 60 million registered users and around 10 million monthly active users, most of them in Brazil. Around 90% of our users and 90% of our revenues are in that market. We have a team of 170 people in Buenos Aires. Even though our main market is Brazil, we have a very small office there, and all of our development is done in-house in our Buenos Aires studio. And I think quite importantly, and we'll talk a little bit more about later, we have our own proprietary system for payments that accepts cash payments in over 100,000 points of sale, which in Latin America, as many of you know, it's quite important, where credit cards and other forms of payment are not so developed. Why is gaming important? Gaming is important because it's a 70 billion global business. It's a huge, huge business, and it's rapidly changing. Right now, a lot of people are still used to buy their Wii, their Nintendo, their PlayStation, but more and more we see it in Asian markets in particular. People are starting to play online, they're playing on their mobile phones, and it's really changing. And this number of 70 billion will only increase, but it will go more towards the internet and more towards mobile. So there is a huge opportunity to be caught right now. Lots of people are getting a little bit more afraid of social gaming, seeing valuations that went up and down, but the opportunity is still there. Users are still willing to pay for content. Definitely an interesting business worldwide. Social and mobile is showing unprecedented growth, and I think this is quite a telling slide. And I mentioned Zynga here, which is one of our competitors, but it's a global company. I think it's interesting. They have around 250 million monthly players, right? Compare that with the total consoles that have been sold in the world, which is $200 million, 200 million total. And compare that with the number of users that play World of Warcraft, which is the most successful game from Activision, which is valued at $12 billion. So you really get a sense. It's okay? I was talking too loud. So you really get a sense of the scale that social gaming has. And social gaming, it's a great business as long as you acquire users cheaply enough and you monetize them well. And that's really the key. But you have this huge number of users, in this case users in Facebook. The same thing happens in mobile. Look at mobile. The average person with a smartphone spends 77 minutes using apps. Of those, 25 minutes are playing games. Huge opportunity there. A lot of those are freemium, but a lot of those are also paid. I read recently Angry Birds, kind of like in the world, 125 years are played per day of Angry Birds if you compare the minutes that people spend playing this game. So it's quite impressive, and these numbers have only been increasing. How are social games and mobile games too different from your traditional games? So how is a Zynga or a Boss2 or a Rovio different a little bit from what an Activision is or the old games from EA were? And I think this is an important point. First one is high cost of development. Let's say EA or Activision or World of Tanks for those of you who play more hardcore games. These folks spend 2 or 3 years developing a game. It's basically the idea of an art director and a game designer, and they just go ahead, develop, and spend 10, 20, $30 million developing a game that's even more complex than a movie. On social games, really what you do is you develop a prototype. You develop a game in 2, 3, or 4 months, ideally, and then you throw it to the market. And the way in which you grow the game is very different. It's not the idea of an art director or a game designer. It's really what people want as well. The analogy that we use a lot internally is we're not really producing movies, we're building soap operas. And it's a little bit less sexy than producing your sort of like dream movie, but it's also very, very profitable if you do it okay and you listen to your users. Because why they're incapable of really addressing their user base. They have to be based on what they did before, that they do a huge bet after they spend tens of millions of dollars. We can tweak the game to what people are doing more, and we use a lot of analytics for that. I think the other big difference, I think that's on my next slide, is who's playing these games. It's not on the traditional video games, it's your kids, they're 15 years old, they want a Wii, they want a PlayStation, they want games that cost $60, just like you buy them, etc. It's very, very expensive. What's happening with social networks and with mobile phones, etc., is everyone is playing these games. Our best customers are women that are like 35 to 45-year-old and have 2 kids. Those are the people that are playing our games. It's not the 12 years old, it's not the 7 years old. So it's really changing who plays game. It's really opening up the market. And then monetization it's a huge difference, right? For these games, you have to invest a lot of money in marketing, and then you have to pay $60 for a CD. In the social mobile games, you pay $1, you pay $2, you pay $3.99. You play nothing, and you only pay if you really like them. That also makes it more complicated for these companies to be profitable, but with good analytics and managing the cost of acquisition, it's really doable. As I said before, it's not kind of like little kids. It's not necessarily 15 or 25-year-olds that like hardcore games and spend 2 hours a day in an internet cafe. It's women that are at home while their kids are in school and are playing these games. It's everyone that has 2 minutes to spare on their mobile phone. I'm sure lots of you who never played game before are now playing Angry Birds and things like that. So that's increasing a lot. That $70 billion market of games that we saw, it's mostly for hardcore gamers. There are people that are playing these very complicated games. This is opening the market to a whole new set of people that didn't play a game before. Hopefully, the industry will also advance and we'll be able to catch those 15 and 20 and 25-year-olds that also want a more competitive or hardcore experience and move them to a freemium model. Talking about Latin America more specifically, the industry is around $250 and $300 million, depending on who you ask, but it's really growing quite fast at a rate of around 20% per year. The other interesting thing is that what we see in our users when we talk to our peers in the US, users are much more engaged. The average user in our games spends around between 40 and 50 minutes per day, which is huge. The big difference between how users play games in the US or more developed markets versus how they play them in Latin America is that in more developed markets, they play a couple of minutes a day for several times. In Latin America, what we see is they play mostly 1 time a day for long periods of time. It may be because they share computers at home, just like other things like that. And we think that the addressable revenue pool is even higher. This doesn't include a huge opportunity that there is to monetize better non-paying users. In social games, the way it works is around between 2 and 5% of people pay for content. The rest of people play for free. In the US, that's a little bit higher and goes from 3 to 10%. In Asia, it's really high. It goes above 15%. We see a huge opportunity in Latin America to monetize these users. We've started doing it through advertising campaign. A lot of brands have tons of money to invest in advertising in the region. And to be honest, I think some of you guys here are helping them. But for the most part, they're doing quite boring things. They're just adding likes to their Facebook page. They're buying banners. They maybe do like a little game that's boring and gets to 5,000 users. We see games as a huge opportunity of getting to millions of users and be really, really engaged with the brands. And with that, we've done stuff with Unilever, with Coca-Cola, with Volkswagen, and with some very, very big brands that are willing to take risks because it takes a risk to really move online. So it's quite an interesting number in the region. And to be honest, we welcome competitors. I think the more gaming companies are out there with local content, the more the market grows, the more we educate people, the more we educate advertisers, etc. I think you guys probably covered this in the morning, but again, the other super interesting thing for us is how fast Android and iOS are growing in the region. If you look at Latin America, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, really growing like crazy, only second to China. So there's a real opportunity here. And lots of people keep talking about China, or when you talk about emerging markets, they focus in India or Russia. But Latin America, it's an extremely interesting opportunity. And not only Brazil, countries like Chile or Argentina, which has a lot of macroeconomic troubles, people are spending time on smartphones. They're spending money on smartphones. And I think this is only going to get better. You have things such as the things that Facebook is doing in the region, where they're doing deals with the phone providers to provide free access to social networks. You have countries like Brazil that are putting a lot of pressure in the carriers to invest in mobile and bandwidth, etc. So it's not only sales of devices is increasing, it's also activity and monetization. Then, just to finalize on Latin America as a whole, we see that users from Latin America, differently from other regions, are super engaged on social networks. And we see that in Brazil in particular. Orkut, which was the largest social network there, which is where Vosto grew initially, it's still quite big and it has around 30 million monthly active users. Facebook grew super aggressively during the last year and now has over 50 million monthly active users, second largest country in the world. Google Plus, depending who you talk to, they don't really disclose information, but it's like the second or third largest country in the world. Twitter is huge. Other things that people have stopped using are also huge, like MSN Messenger. And then you have the Chinese with QQ trying to enter the market, YY, another big Chinese company trying to enter the market, Gree, huge Japanese mobile social network trying to enter the market. And the interesting thing in Brazil is people are not afraid of trying these social networks, interacting with them, having multiple social networks at a time. We have people that import their games from Orkut to Facebook, and now they play games in both platforms at the same time, have friends in both platforms, etc. So super engaged socially. I think the average Orkut player has around 1,100 friends. The average Facebook player in Brazil has around 350 friends. And the average Facebook user overall, I believe, has around 150 in the world. So if you compare how many friends they have and the level of social interaction, I think that's very, very telling, not only for gaming, but for any business you choose to run in the region. And I think you see it here as percent of time that it's spent on social networks versus total time on the internet. Latin America is way above other regions, even regions with higher penetration, such as North America. We may be a little bit more lazy and spend more time socializing with friends, but big opportunity for everyone interested in investing in entertainment. Then localization really matters, and that's a question we get a lot because we're basically a Brazilian-focused company about to be more of a Latin American company. And we tend to perform better than some of the international companies. And these are the things that we think matter. One is social, as I said, matter more. So we put a lot of emphasis on social friction to monetize our users. The second one is a basic thing, but not so basic, is we make games that are light. Most people don't have broadband at their houses. A lot of people don't have the best internet connections possible on their phones. So we make games that are light. And that's a lot of our technology efforts are, let's just make sure that these games loads fast, it's fast to play, it's fast to send messages, etc. Then payments is a huge part of it. As you know, a lot of people in Latin America don't have credit cards. A lot of people that have credit cards are afraid to put their credit cards online. So just building a brand and making sure that they're well treated when they pay with credit card and that they can not only pay online, but also call you on the phone if they have a problem, it's important. Second one is SMS. SMS is an expensive method of payment for us because carriers take 40 or 50%, but it's a huge way of getting people to pay. For us, the important thing is let's just get them to pay. Once they pay one time, we do a lot of things with email, if they spend a lot of money on the phone, online, etc., to try to move them to more profitable ways of payment from SMS to credit card or to cash payments, etc. But the most important thing we see is just get them to pay one time. If you get people used to paying for content, they'll keep paying. If you get them used to play for free and you don't want to kind of like, no, because someone's going to take 50%. It's better that they take 50% than them not paying. So for us, SMS is very, very important, and we're integrated with all of the carriers, and we accept all price points. And these are conversations we've had with the Facebook folks. At the beginning, Facebook was, no, I'm not taking a price point before 6, because we don't do it globally, 6 reais at that point. We said, just go for the 0.99. Go for the 1.99. Just get people used to paying. And we've done that. Finally is cash. Cash payments is still quite important in the region. We've integrated with a lot of internet cafes and things like that. So basically, if you want to buy what we call a Vosto pin, you can go to any kiosk or to wherever you buy phone cards. You say, I want a Vosto pin. They print it for you. You get it. You enter the pin, and you pay. And that really gives us much better monetization than that just using credit card or just depending on Facebook credits, or just depending on SMS with a specific carrier. And then relevant content and localization. When we do sort of like campaigns, we don't do them with Madonna. We do them with Ivete Sangalo, which is kind of like the local equivalent for those of you that you are familiar with Brazil. When we do something for younger kids, we don't do it with Justin Bieber. We do it with Michel Teló, which is also a local celebrity. We've run in the past TV ads. I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for conversion from TV to internet, but it's a great way of building a brand and sort of like having people trust your brand that then helps you convert to payments. So this is the last slide, and then happy to take any questions. What do we see in the future? One, mobile-centric. When we see where we're investing money, it's in mobile. And in the same way that I think a lot of people are skipping email in a sense, they're going from texting, from SMS texting to just Facebook messages. We see that a lot of people are just going from playing little games on their non-smartphones to just smartphones and playing games there. And they'll kind of like skip the whole using your computer to play games, at least for these social or more casual games. So we're very, very mobile-centric. We still think that in Latin America it's important to have a web leg, because even though everything is becoming more mobile and prices are going down and penetration of smartphones is going up, it's still not there yet. The penetration of smartphones is 20 or 30%. Having internet on your phone all the time, it's expensive, and the speed is not the best. But it's going to get there. If it's not next year, it's going to be 2 or 3 years down the road. The other one is more user-generated content. I think in today's world where you have your Facebook page, you have your Twitter, you kind of like, you want to say what you like want about the news and not really read the news. You don't want to look at random people's pictures. You want to use Instagram, etc. We're testing a lot of stuff around user-generated content. Games where you can build the content, trivia games where you can ask your friend things. You can take a picture and your friends need to guess where you are, or make jokes among friends and things like that. We think that that will be big in the future. We're starting to test it. We don't have an answer for it, but we think that definitely will be around there. And the last experience, which is interesting for us, I think for those of you that are entrepreneurs here, I think it's interesting overall, is just gamifying more experiences. And a lot of people talk about it, not many people are doing things about it. We did an interesting campaign with Walmart in one of our games, in which users could go to a Walmart store, log into walmart.com, buy stuff within our games for Walmart, and they had some like prices in the game and things like that. And we sold around $70,000 in like 2 days of doing that. Walmart.com didn't sell that much in Brazil at all. And I think there are tons of opportunities there. If you want to do a diet, do you want to do like a diet where you just like read exactly what to eat, or do you want to do a diet that's a little bit more social and you can compete with your friends on who lost more pounds and things like that? If you're looking at the educational market, which is sort of like wide open for innovation, do you want to sort of like memorize a bunch of things, or do you want to do it playing games with your friends that are more fun and things like that? So definitely a huge opportunity. We see it for game developers, but also for anyone interested in just like building companies in the region to gamify their experience a little bit more and make it more fun. So that's all I had. I don't know if you guys have any questions. So the way we measure total monetization is basically users times percent of paying users times what we call RPP, average revenue per paying user. The percent of paying user in our games ranges from 1 to 4% depending on the game. What we see is when you look at the RPPU, or average revenue per paying user, it ranges from $8 to $12. So it's quite good. If you compare that with, let's say, a Zynga here, they're around $25. It's half. If you adjust it by PPP, it's quite good. I think the real opportunity is how do you monetize the 95% of users that are not paying, and that's where we're spending a lot of time. Also, I think interesting, and that's quite common in the industry, payments are quite concentrated. So you have people that spend maybe $100 or $150 per month, and people that just spend a couple of dollars per month. That's in a month, sorry. So that's in a month. That's in a specific month.
Do you have any specific product that use content generated by the users and use that as the main thing in the game?
Yeah, so we just launched a game which we're still playing around with it. We're not completely happy with what it looks, but it's that idea. It's called Real Pic, and it's actually available on the Android and iOS, so download it if you're curious. And the idea is you take a picture and you share it with your friends, and it's basically Hangman with pictures. So it's kind of like an Instagram meets a Draw Something. So when we saw Draw Something growing so much, Instagram growing so much, we said there has to be something in the middle where you take a picture and you're just not just sharing it so people see what a good picture taker you are, or like how good you can put 5 filters in the picture. But really, if it's fun, and it has happened to me a bunch of times. I'm like in the subway or something, I see someone that looks like someone. I just want to take a picture and share it with friends, but I don't want to post it on my wall in Facebook. So now I can take a picture and be like, oh, that guy looks like Maradona, I'll share it with 5 friends, or looks like a friend of us from high school, and I just share it with those friends. Or if we're at a party and something fun happens, I can take a picture and not post it on my wall in Facebook, which maybe I have some colleagues from business that don't want them to see that aspect of my life, and just like share it with specific people. So we think that there's definitely there. Real Pic is our first shot at doing that, but we have a lot of new products coming on that sense.
Hi, Diego from Jump. You spoke a lot about mobile and how that's the opportunity. But as far as I know, the portfolio of games you have so far is mostly web, right? So that's sort of your legacy games. How are you going to divide the resources from now on? Are you going to focus mostly in developing for mobile? Are you going to still continue to develop new titles for web? And also in which platforms? Are you going for Android, for iOS? What are you doing?
Okay. So currently, most of our revenues and most of our users are online. We're quickly transitioning to mobile. Right now, around 50% of our people are allocated to mobile. We expect that on an ongoing basis next year, that will look more 75 mobile, 25 web. When we look at what we develop on mobile, we're looking at a couple of things. First, we're looking at titles that we already have that are big on Facebook, and building legs for those games on mobile. So we have a game called Candy Dash, which is a bubble shooter in Facebook, and we built that version for Android, and we're launching it for iOS. For Shaking Vegas, for example, which is another game we have, we're actually testing it with Gree, with this Japanese social network, which is entering the region. We did a deal with them, and we'll be distributing it with them. In terms of your question of Android versus iOS, Android, we think, will get more traction in the region because they have cheaper handsets. Samsung and LG are manufacturing locally. Google, it's pushing very hard in the region. It's also much simpler to develop for Android, in the sense that you can continuously do updates to the games. You don't need to submit something and wait 2 weeks. You can just submit the upgrades to the game, and that happens automatically. So what we tend to do with development is we develop in Android. We do a lot of sort of changes to the game until we really like it and we feel it's optimized. Then if the game does well, we develop it for Android. And in terms of technology, we're really doing native. We had a game called Elemental, which we did in HTML5. It was quite good and fast. We launched it. We had 50,000 downloads. So we still like the game. Why isn't it working? We did it for iOS, for Android native, and we got 2 million downloads in like 4 months. And it's kind of like exactly the same game. So native for sure, Android first, iOS after. iOS does monetize better than Android, I think, everywhere, including the region. No, I think it's looking more like we want people to pay for content. So we're testing new things all the time. Right now, most of our games are freemium, so it's free to play. You pay for power-ups, functionalities, or decoration, and that's 1 to 5% depending on the game that I've been talking about. We're now doing some deals with some IP providers. So kind of like when you get better IP, we want to try to see if people are more willing to pay upfront for content. So we'll test that. And you've seen that with Batman, for example. I don't know if you guys have played that game on iOS, but you buy it for $7.99. I downloaded. I know quite a bit about games. everyone that works with us knows quite a bit about our games. We still haven't figured out how to play that game. But it was Batman. We wanted to try it, and we paid $8 without knowing what it was. So that's still there. I think another huge opportunity is subscriptions. People in Latin America are really used to parcelamientos or paying in quotas, no? Someone told me the other day, Argentina is the only country in the world where you pay for your house up front and you pay for your supermarket in installments. But that's kind of like what people are used to do. So we want to try subscriptions as well with the kind of like with the subscription model, or telling them, hey, this is $4, but you can pay to me throughout the year on like 12 installments or something like that. And then with advertising, we want to test different things. We think there's a lot of room to experiment on monetization, and we don't want to sort of like marry ourselves to a single strategy, in particular because it's quite easy to trust it, to try these things. If they don't work, you change them, you change price points, things like that. Up to a point where what we're doing in some of our games is, which some people kind of like think it's a little bit unfair, but we're charging different things to different people. So like for the same functionality, we know that you pay. You know that in the past you've paid a lot. We know that you don't want to wait for a functionality. If you sort of like plant some crops, you want them right now. So we may charge you $10 so you get your crops right now. If you know that you're someone that has never paid in the past, you're kind of lazy, and we really want you to pay, we may sort of like show you a super promotion where you can sort of like do the same thing that the other guy did for $10 for 50 cents. And that's very, very powerful. And the good thing is that you as the developer have total transparency of what the user has done. The user doesn't really have that much transparency on the pricing. So it's a really a huge opportunity, which I think we're innovating in gaming. I think it can apply to a lot of different areas as well. I think you just have to be careful in the way in which you communicate it to your user base and to your customers, because it gives the impression of unfairness. I think it's more kind of like capturing willingness to pay. But there's a little gray line there that you have to make sure that you communicate correctly.
Okay. Well, Matías, thank you so much. And very interesting. Thank you for being here. You're catching a flight this afternoon.
Yeah, tomorrow morning. I arrived this morning and I'm flying tomorrow morning. Okay. But thank you so much for the invitation.
And thank you for being with us. Okay.
Gracias.
Thank you.